Mic off.
Good afternoon. How are we all doing today? That was a very abrupt ending to that song, but I guess it works. Whew. Hope you're all doing okay. I just got out of the shower here a second ago. I just realized I have not correctly applied today's brackets. So let me fix those real quick. All the names are right, but I just realized the placement is wrong. So let's take a moment to fix this, shall we? Silly me. So let's just bump everybody around a bit here. So Turin's down here. Falcon is up here. And this top one does not like to behave. It's like super finicky. Panton is correct, magically. Gojira goes over here. Outer region goes up here. Gojira will slip in here. Zardar goes down here. Rixon goes up here. And then Turin goes in here. Pharaoh goes up here. And Zardar goes up here. There we go. Much better. Alright, so those are today's matchups. We've got a couple of new faces. We got two brand new folks. And then we've got a couple people returning we haven't seen in a while. Actually, we have three new people. Two of which are new to the scene from the first time I've seen them play. But this is Pharaoh's first time here, though if you're familiar with the online community, you probably know Pharaoh. So that's all those goodies. Let's go ahead and get the game up and running. Hope you're all doing well today. There is a small chance I might have to take a quick breather break at some point, because I know my anxiety is a little high today. Just through I broke my fan last night, and I think that's what's bothering me so much, and it is I'm so mad about it. I was cleaning my room, and I had just put on fresh sheets and everything, and you can see Chloe back there. I'm trying not to bother her because she's sleeping. But I was fluffing my comforter, as you do, making sure it was all nice and stuff, and I fluffed it a little too hard, and it flew up to where the fan was, because my ceiling's kind of low, and it hit the fan and just fucking wrecked it. Like, oh my god. One of the blades, which is supposed to be flat, was like this, so I just grabbed it and bent it back. But the problem was, even when I kind of bent everything back to what I believe is the correct shape, I think it dislodged and is hanging too low, and it was like shaking super hard. So I had to turn it down a bunch. And hoo boy did I fuck it up. So I'm gonna try and fix it later tonight. But we'll do that then. Anyway, so let's go ahead and hop into our first game. And I'm gonna do my absolute best not to shout tonight. Because usually when I'm streaming, I end up shouting because my headphones, they're very soundproof. So you might see my ear today, my precious, glorious, sweet ear. I'm being distracted by my own stupid comments. Who's Chloe? Hold on, let me see if she wants to say hi. Hey! Chloe, come here. Hey! The Nico Mueller donating 100. That's the currency from... I know it's from Eastern Europe. I don't know exactly which one it is, but RIP fan. Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. I'm probably going to have to buy a new one. Chloe, come here. Hey. Hey. What's this? What's this? Look. Come here. Come here. Come on. Up. Come here. Come on. Come a little closer. Come be social. Come be social. Oh, good girl. This is Chloe. Chloe is a very big doggo. She's my Great Pyrenees White Lab mix. I'll move my camera. Oh, it's Denmark. Damn. I was almost right. I was close. I knew it was European. Alright, let's go ahead and get started, guys. So, we're here on the Iron Sand Desert to start. And we've got Lizardmen, and we got the Last Defender sub-faction led by Falcon, who is a 3-time champion. He was dethroned last week by Turin, but he's here to reclaim it, so we'll see what he's going to be able to do. And he's up against a newcomer named Outer Region, who I have never seen before in a tournament. So we'll have to... I'm not sure if he's completely new to the tourney setting, but he was one of the people that came and talked to me, and we fit him in this week. So let's go ahead and get looking at the list. Over for the Lizardmen, we've got a heavy duty list here. We've got 3 units of Temple Guard, 3 units of Kroxigor, supported by a Ancient Stegodon, which of course have the Gatling gun blowpipes, 4 units of Skink Cohorts with Javelins, and 2 units of Skink Cohorts, as well as a Slaawn Mage Priest of Light, who has Bjorn's Time Warp and False Protection. So a pretty similar build to last week, though it looks like it's a little bit more nasty, because last week it was mostly horned ones. Jason Dean said, here's some fan money from a different fan. Well, hopefully we'll be able to fix it instead of just getting a new one, but I'll get back to you guys on that particular adventure. Meanwhile, from the underdog quarter, we've got a Beastmen list. So we've got a Savage Dominion caster here. Not Savage Dominion. Yeah, it is Savage Dominion. Shouldn't second guess myself. He's also got the Eye of Morslib, who's already getting a good chuck in there. 3 units of Synagors with throwing axes. Looks like we've got 2 units of Goreherds with shields, one of which is the Regiment of Renown, Blackhorn's Ravagers, who of course have Immune to Psych and Perfect Vigor. Then we've got the Destroyers of the Drakewald, and another unit of Umgor Spearman Herd with shields, and then Korok's Man Rippers with another unit of Bestigors, and then for a hero, we've got the Gorbel here with Blood Greed. And who is leading this army? Oh, there they are. Is it Morgar? It is Morgar. So this is a very competitive Beastman build. Very competitive Beastman build. But we'll have to see if it's enough. Already, the Temple Guard have lost about 14 guys to those boulders from the Eye of Morslib, which is awesome value. The Eye of Morslib, oh, 7 right off the bat there from that toss. I mean, that is incredible value. Each one of those boulders is really going to be pulling its weight. This is a very elite Beastman army. The thing that they're going to have to really watch out for, though, is these skinks. Those Synagors with throwing axes are going to be the best way the Beastmen have to really take down the likes of this Ancient Stegodon and all these Kroxigors. These Kroxigors are going to lay an absolute paddling down on the Beastmen front line. Like, those Ungor Spearmen don't really have the AP to hurt them that bad. The only infantry unit that's really a threat to them is Korok's Man Rippers. So these Kroxigors I think are going to be kind of the crux of the Lizardmen front line. Meanwhile, we have the Stegodon already charging the Korok's Man Rippers. They weren't braced because they were kind of doing a counter charge, so it just sort of plowed through them. It does take a rock directly to the podium, probably crushing a few skinks on board. Oh, look at that! A perfect Warp Gaze. I was wondering why he wasn't moving. So Warp Gaze gets popped as the Gorbel comes in, so the Gorbel doesn't have to worry about getting punted away, and him and Gorek's Man Rippers are crucifying this thing. We have an upgraded Bjorn's Time Warp going down, along with an upgraded False Protection, but it is focused on the Kroxigors, who are already smashing their way through the front line very convincingly. These Vestergors need to be careful because they're going to get absolutely rocked. But that Stegodon did take a ton of damage. Here we see the first Cygor summon has gone down, and it looks like it's probably going to be trying to surround the Stegodon to help the Gorbel out there. Meanwhile, we have a second Cygor that's gone down here who is continuing to throw boulders, and if it can, getting boulders into this pocket of Temple Guard right here would be the real money shot, but unfortunately it's focusing on the Skinks, which it's doing a ton of damage, but that's just... they're Skinks, you know, just run them over with the Centaurs at that point. The Centaurs can easily overwhelm them in combat. Here, though, the front line from the Beastmen has completely buckled as the triple POW town of Kroxigors have started absolutely laying waste to the Beastmen. There's still two very, very healthy Temple Guard units, 3 actually, that are pushing through the front line. They're going to have an easy time just destroying all of the Beastmen infantry. The balance of power has already started to swing a little bit in the Beastmen's favor, actually, but I don't think that's going to last. I think that's mainly because of the Cygor summon, making the Beastmen's army a lot more valuable than it actually is, and as soon as that thing goes down, they're going to be in trouble. Here, the Gorbel and the Chaos Spawn have been surrounded by Temple Guard, and these Chaos Spawn are deteriorating, so they're going to be completely gone in about half a second. But not all is lost, as these throwing axes do come in and bring down the Stegodon. And not only does the Stegodon go down to the throwing axes, but it looks like it actually got turned. It birthed a group of Chaos Spawn horrifically. So a army of Chaos Spawn come charging out to help support the Gorbel, which is great because otherwise the Borgul and Morgor were about to be very surrounded. And that Gorbel is right on top of the Slaawn now, and he doesn't have a way to really deal with it. Though he does pop Bjorn's Time Warp, and look at him go! Look at it! Look at how much... that dude, he has popped the boosters. The thrusters have been activated, and that Slaawn is getting the hell out of dodge. Over here, we see that the secondary Cygor is still doing tons of damage. Looks like the Lizardmen, for the most part, are just kind of trying to ignore him until he collapses. Over here, the Skinks did join up with the Kroxigor, and with their powers combined, they were able to bring down the Eye of Morslib, and he is going to be hearing the death keel pretty shortly and going extinct. However, the balance of power is still a little bit against the Lizardmen, though I'm honestly feeling the Lizardmen have this situation very under control. These Kroxigors have a ton of mass, and if there's one thing I really love about Falcon is that he really, really is getting good, or is proven his mastery, not getting good, being good, at my preferred style, which is using units like Kroxigors as just one of the best monster bodyguards you can have in an army. They bring a lot of reinforced mass, and they combo so well with virtually every other Lizardman frontline unit that they just make awesome, awesome guys to run in and just lay a smackdown when your infantry alone can't handle it. So the Beastmen have completely lost control of the right flank and the center. The Lizardmen have dominated it. They've shattered the Gorbel. The Eye of Morslib is beelining towards the edge of the stage, though all of the Kroxigors, unfortunately, have rampaged after the Centaurs with throwing axes. They will take quite a bit of damage, but luckily for them, the Kroxigors, they have a very, very high missile resistance for monstrous infantry at 15%, which is the same as characters, so they're going to be mitigating a fair amount of that damage. Though they're not fast enough to catch these guys, so as long as they stay rampaging, they're actually very, very vulnerable to Centaur throwing axes. Here we see the Beastmen army is rallying. The second Cygor has completely vanished, but this Brave Shaman over here is just building up the Winds of Magic, preparing for another summon. If he can get out that summon, the Beastmen might be able to salvage this situation, because they're starting to turn things in their favor quite a bit, because they can utilize the range play here, carefully backing away and continuing to fire range shots. And sure enough, where one Cygor falls, another raises in its place. So up comes another Cyclops that's going to be chucking boulders. Over there, Morgor is remaining engaged, so the Beastmen don't have to worry about any potential rule breaks for not engaging, because Morgor is engaging against Skink cohorts, and a lot of these shooting units are remaining engaged. I think there is technically a rule against 360 cav units just running around, but there's more than enough other stuff going on. And now there's a whole nother Cygor out here shucking rocks. And here we've got 2 units of Temple Guard, though they are pretty deeply wounded and kind of further out in the field. Oh, but a perfect banishment comes in and absolutely slam dunks that main Beastmen front line, completely eradicating all of their infantry. So at this point, the only thing holding the Beastmen together is the Bray Shaman and Morgar. So the Bray Shaman should definitely be the priority target. He's very easy to kill, and if they can bring him down, then it'll be super easy to turn around and deal with Morgar. We do see these Centaurs with throwing axes running in to try and clean up these skinks. They're trying to cause army losses at this point because this Cygor, being a monster, he counts for a ton when the game is trying to determine who has the greater balance of power. And having a big terror causer like this is worth its weight in gold, and that thing's pretty heavy. But there are 2 units of Temple Guard who have jumped on him, and they're already ripped him down to half health. He's not very good in prolonged engagements, but he is being supported by throwing axes continuously coming in. We did see a blood statue at a spike go down on some of these Centaurs, continuously reducing their health, but the Lizardmen are kind of in a spooky situation. That balance of power is making me very, very nervous. Because although I think at this battle, I think if every unit was unbreakable and they were fighting to the death, I feel no problem saying the Lizardmen would have this. No questions asked. But that balance of power is spooky. That being said, the Cygor does go down, potentially crushing 1 or 2 Temple Guard on his way down, and the balance of power is starting to swing back towards the middle. Here we see that the Brave Shaman of Wild has shattered, and now Morgar is completely surrounded with no hope of support unless these Centaurs want to get engaged in combat. They are out of missile fire, so they cannot hope to just ping the Temple Guard to death. If these Temple Guard turn around right here, which they are, looks like they're going to have time to brace. Oh, look at that. Perfectly timed bracing. So they refuse the charge damage, start swinging back, and the Croxagors come swinging in, are going to be able to smack a few of them with their colossal great weapons, doing some excellent damage. Meanwhile, we still have some skink cohorts here who are happily holding on to their javelins, peppering the Centaurs and keeping them at range. Morgar over here is busy trying to fight against these Temple Guard, but Bjorn's Time Warp has gone down, making these Temple Guard go up to a colossal 48 melee attack. So now we're into the final stages of the battle, where the Centaurs are going to have to cycle charge to the best of their ability to try and get the Skink's leadership to collapse, so that the Lizardmen will be left isolated enough that army losses might be able to kick in and see them off. Morgar is a very, very tough cookie, and he will last for a long time here. But these Temple Guard are starting to fight against the Centaurs, and this Slon is coming in and dropping some really nasty AoE explosions on them. And that's already broken 1 unit, and the balance of power has gone completely back to the middle at long last, as the Lizardmen are crawling their way back to the center stage. Man, as someone asked for in the donation earlier, Khorne is getting his due here. Blood for the Blood God. There is so many corpses across this battlefield. 4 dead monsters, tons of absolutely eradicated infantry. Oh, but look at this. Despite the fact the Aura of Quetzal and the Slon here is providing a lot of bonuses to these Temple Guard and stuff, the fear being caused by Morgar is causing a lot of these units to really question if they want to keep fighting here. And, I mean, look at that. There's so many wavering units. But the Slon does pop cold-blooded on some of the Temple Guard, providing them with that massive plus 16 leadership. And the Croxagors are coming in here, making sure that the Centaurs keep a respectful distance. Pretty much what I would probably do at this point is just throw everything but the 2 Croxagor units onto Morgar, keep the Slon at a safe distance so that Morgar isn't able to snipe him out, and just use the Croxagors to just body block the Centaurs, prevent them from getting any friendly charges in, and just start to slowly but surely beat them down. We do see the Centaurs are running around trying to get some cleanup duty gone. This is actually turning out to be a pretty long battle. Morgar is just not taking any damage. I mean, that poison of his is so good for reducing the melee attack of everybody around him, despite the fact that a lot of them have various buffs. And I mean, they have Morgar so completely surrounded, but because the Centaurs are such an overwhelmingly powerful force, and there's other Beastmen on the field who are rallying back to the front, Morgar's managing to keep his leadership sustainable despite the fact that he's exhausted and completely surrounded on all sides by superior units. But these Croxagors have gotten him into an absolute circle beating fest, And they are literally just punching him from one Proxigor to the other in like a never-ending pain train. It looks like Morgar's really starting to lose his leadership advantage here. We do see the Synagors come around and they try and get in with a charge, but the Temple Guard were ready for them and had a brace charge. Managed to slap a few of them and don't take any too notable damage. The Slaawn is helping see off these Centaurs from this side, which honestly, I think the Slaawn can kind of hold these guys off. As long as they're not hitting him in the rear, he can actually lay a whoop down on these guys because the Slaawn is very, very good against things that circle up on him. Here we see Morgar is down to almost less than 1,000 health and his healing cap is rapidly approaching. He is continuing to regenerate and he has a very substantial 103 kills, but his leadership is starting to crack. He's at 10, 4, negative 11, negative 7, and Morgar has broken. And with the leadership gone and the Scion of Morgar defeated, the Beastmen have fallen. That was a great fight. Absolute round of applause for the New Face Outer Region. That is easily by far the best Beastman display we've seen in this series. So great game, guys. That was an awesome way to open up. Man, he played that perfectly. They're just those Croxigors backed up by those Temple Guard. That's just a very tanky group, and the Beastmen front line just unfortunately buckled under the pressure. But what an awesome, awesome, awesome opening game. Ain't that right, Chloe? She's like, I'm trying to nap, and you are talking constantly. It's super annoying. Alright, and with that, let's go ahead and update our scoreboard here. So, Falcon is our Game 1 champion. But, I must say that that was a super entertaining match by New Face Outer Region, and I thought he did a fantastic job. Fantastic job. But man, that he got paddled, chat. He got paddling. All right, with that, we're off to game 2. Gojira versus Rigson. Don't believe so. Alright. Sorry, we had a question. Alright, so for game 2, we've got Rigson and Gojira. Rigson joined us last week and is clearly back here wanting to unleash the forces of the Vampire Coast. And we've got Gojira, who is bringing back his beloved Greenskins. Speaking of which, we have a lot of Greenskins this week. So I think the WA has rallied and has gotten many of its many Greenskins from all across the world have gathered in hopes to finally let the Greenskins claim a championship. So for anyone who is joining us for the first time or maybe has missed prior weeks, the races that have won so far, week 1, Turin brought the victory with the Vampire Coast. Week 2, Falcon won with the Tomb Kings, and then Falcon went on to win week 3 and week 4 with the High Elves and Lizardmen respectively. And then week 5, which was last week, Turin reclaimed his throne with the Dwarfs. If the Dogs of War ever made it in the game, how do I think they'd play? Probably an army that does not have very many elite troops, but relies on a lot of bizarre specialties that have a lot of really interesting synchronizations. The thing about the Dogs of War is that they don't have elite troops. They have a lot of like troops. Their closest thing to high tier infantry are pikemen, which were very powerful in that in Warhammer the game, they were the only unit that had like a true anti-large charge defense bonus like we understand in Total War. So obviously in Total War, they'd probably have like charge defense against all, armor piercing. They'd be halberds on cocaine, essentially, and that would be like the most important thing. But other than that, it's really just kind of an interesting conglomeration. And it'd probably be the one human army that would have access to interesting mercenaries, like maybe a single dwarf unit type, or a single type of unit that had ogres, like ogre man-eaters, and they might even have like mercenary giants. So it'd have some pretty cool things. But let's go ahead and get started here. So Rigson, who is a very, very good player, so is Gojira, but Rigson, I believe, is in the ECL tournament coming up almost in 8 days, which I believe Turin's going to be putting out a trailer today for those of you interested in watching the ECL finals, which I will also be participating in somehow. But anyway, let's get looking at this list. So we've got a ton of zombies. This is a full 20 stack. We've got, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 units of zombie pirate deckhand mob with polearms, 4 regular units of zombie pirate deckhand mobs. We've got Count Noctilus leading the legions of undead on foot, and it looks like he's got the usual spell loadout of summon and heal. We've also got the Tide of Skjold, who's one of those 4 pirate zombie deckhand mobs. We've got 3 units of zombie pirate gunnery mobs with handguns, and 1 with hand cannons who got a very substantial buff, from what I understand. Because we are in the Festag patch now, by the way. We are in full-on Festag City. We've also got 2 units of deck droppers with handguns who were notably nerfed in this most recent patch that went out a few days ago. We've also got a unit of sirens, and then we've got 2 cannons being bolstered by a gunnery wight who has extra powder and both of his, and well, the more powder, the extra powder, and then the enhanced ballistics. Alright, meanwhile, on the Greenskin sides of things with Slowjira, we've got 1 unit, 2 units of Orc Biggins, 3 units of Black Orcs making up the center line, with the new and improved Crimson Killas, who now have 60 models, making them the same as regular Black Orcs, but they have a spooky stat line. They are a very, very powerful unit. They have much less melee defense, but their cleave abilities are pretty legendary. So we'll have to see how they do. We've also got the Arachnaut Queen, who's already eating a ton of cannon fire. 2 units of Goblin Archers, one of which is the Rusty Error's Night Goblins, who of course have armor sundering. We've got a regular unit of Goblins. Then up here we've got Azhag the Slaughterer with Fate of Buna, Doom and Darkness, and Spirit Leech. And then I think I spied some Spider Riders hiding way down in this ditch as a sea monster goes working through those waters. Also over here we've got some more Spider Riders. So it looks like the deck droppers are kind of looking for something that can possibly snipe out. If they could of course get some early damage on the Crimson Killas, that would be good, because the Crimson Killas are going to absolutely chew up and spit out this entire army if they don't start taking a lot of damage, because to my understanding they have very, very high cleave damage. So they're going to be able to just sort of delete mass infantry like it's not even going to be a big deal. Though we do see here the Arachnaut Queen is taking quite a bit of damage. Unfortunately, Gojira did not show up with a Goblin Shaman with Night Shroud, which is really the only way you can counter this kind of attack. That being said, she is tanking the damage, which is going to allow the Black Orcs to get really close to the front line. So although she is already down to half health, she is going to be able to potentially pull her weight if she can be absorbing all that missile fire and keeping the main force safe. That Fate of Buna, I tell you what, that Fate of Buna is going to need to park itself right here, because these Sirens are going to be a nightmare for the Greenskins otherwise. They do not have a lot of magic damage, and they do not have... and terror is pretty spooky for them. So we do see the first unit of spiderlings coming crawling up from the snow underneath the gunnery mob. Just in time, too, because a full volley from all of these guns and the cannons has brought her down to a measly 400 health. And between the deck droppers and the cannons, she's shattered, so they don't even need to bother now. So here we do have full engagements going on all around the line. Wah has been popped, but Azhag needs to get the hell out of here. Like, this is so dangerous for him to be anywhere near here, just because he's going to be taking so much damage. A Wraiththorn has been summoned into the Crimson Killas. It does some damage, but the Crimson Killas have already chopped Tide of Skjold completely in half. I'm not sure what Gojira is waiting for magic-wise. He needs to start throwing out the Fate of Buna on the Sirens. They need to go off the field. We do see that a unit has already been popped by the Force Goblin Spider Riders, who are just sort of wandering around looking for easy access into various targets. Azhag does have a speed of 110 compared to the 90 of these deck droppers. He could easily run these guys down. Here we do see the Fate of Buna goes down on the Sirens, though it is countered by an immediate overcast heal, though I don't think that's going to quite be enough. We also see a Soul Blight going down, providing a lot of healing, but Azhag is just eating colossal amounts of damage. Like, oh man, poor Azhag, he needed to like fly in, immediately drop Fate of Buna, and then immediately start chasing the deck droppers, because he's the only thing in the Greenskin army that can deal with the deck droppers. And he's more than fast enough. He's got 110 speed. He could easily run these guys down, and when his poison caught them, he would have been able to wipe out the units entirely. However, not all is totally lost, as the Greenskins have started to push through the front line. They've disintegrated a lot of the zombies in their way and look like they're coming in to deal with the cannons, shut them offline, and make sure that the Vampire Coast doesn't have any shooting. If the Vampire Coast loses all their shooting, they could potentially be in a fair amount of trouble if they're not careful. What is it, Chloe? You okay? You leaving? Alright. Meanwhile, things are looking pretty dicey for the Greenskins. Azhag is dead and off the field. And the Greenskins, although, you know, they're fairly powerful, there's a lot of gunpowder on the field. And there's just a lot of models. And their leadership is starting to fracture a little bit. Looks like mostly due to Azhag being gone. And it looks like there's a couple units that are having a little bit of trouble getting orders. Looks like Gojira might be having a little trouble microing today. But overall, I mean, things are going... There's small potential to salvage certain scenarios around the map, but the biggest problem is these deck droppers have just been completely unmolested. Here we see there's about to be another Race Storm coming in from Noctilus. That almost looks like it's going to hit the zombies more than the orcs. But, yeah. So, most of the Greenskins have broken off and shattered, and that is game. That was a fairly elite Greenskin army, but unfortunately it was up against a Vampire Coast army that went very, very wide. And one thing that we've been seeing in the meta right now is that in recent weeks, like the last 2 or 3 weeks, I'd say the last 3 weeks, the builds that have been doing really well for the most part have been these very elite heavy builds. This has been the meta for week 3 and week 4. Last week, Turin fought a lot of these lists and was able to defeat them using a very, very wide Dawi list. So unfortunately, that was kind of they ended up kind of being a counter pick, incidentally. And there just wasn't a lot the Greenskins could do because they didn't have a lot of options. I don't know why I just went into custom battles. Alright, so with that, let's go ahead and thank Goji for his participation and move Rigson up to the semifinals. If I can figure out which one of these is Rigson. There we go. Rigson versus Felcon for the semis. Alright, now it's time to watch last week's champion, Turin, go up against a new fighter on the block, though he is a familiar face, Pharaoh of War. And I saw somebody ask earlier, I'm not really going to bother with the screen blocker. I don't think that there's really a ton of scenarios where a screen blocker is going to, like, you know, like, crushingly give one player an advantage. Because, like, if they're watching the live stream, which they shouldn't be, but if they are, I mean, I go over the armies before the game starts anyway, so... Anyway, for this week, we've got Turin bringing in the vampire counts, and his first opponent will be more Greenskins. Spoiler, there's going to be Greenskins probably for a lot of the rest of the day. The lists are handed in already, but I'm the only one who's seen them until they end up on the field across from each other. Anyway, let's start with Turin's list. So Turin has brought none other than my personal favorite, even though he's on a horse, so it's disqualified as my personal favorite. A horse is cheating. It makes him too competitive. We've got Heinrich Kimmler, and he's brought in Dance Macabre, Invocation of Nehek, and Raise Zombies. We've also got a unit of Blood Knights, 2 units of Fellbats, 2 units of Dire Wolves, one of which is their larger cousins, the Dire Pack. We've got 2 Vargulfs, a Corpse Cart with an Unholy Lodestone, and then we've got 2 units of Graveguard with Great Weapons. We've got the Stearnsman, along with flanking units of 4 Skeleton Warriors. And then, yeah, I believe that's everything. I just had to squeal around a little bit. Meanwhile, for the Greenskins, we've got a Vanguard force of 2 Goblin Wolf Rider Archers. We've got 4 units of Black Orcs, which is proving to be a staple in these tourneys these days. It hasn't quite worked out for the Greenskins so far, though. We've also got 2 units of Goblin Wolf Riders, 2 units of Forest Goblin Spider Riders, 2 units of Night Goblins, one of which, this is the 8-Peak Loonies, because they're unbreakable and have Fanatics. We've got 2 units of Goblin Archers, one of which is the Rusty Errors, and one of which is regular Goblin Archers. We've also got a unit of 2 units of Orc Error Boys, a Night Goblin Shaman with Vindictive Glare and Gorkle Fix-It. Or is that... No, that's Itchy Nuisance, right? No, it is Gorkle Fix-It. Shouldn't have doubted myself. And then we've got none other than Pappy Azhag himself, bringing Purple Sun and Spirit Leech. Very interesting. Alright, so 2 very interesting builds coming in from both players. 2 super wide armies. Both have brought some fairly solid armor piercing. The Vampire Counts definitely have brought a more elite fast line with the double Vargulf and Blood Knights. But the Greenskins have countered with some fairly heavy ranged firepower and a very elite front line of Black Orcs. So we'll have to see who comes out on top as soon as Pharaoh's ready. Who y'all rooting for, chat? Do you root for the Usurpers of Nagash? Or do you root for Orc Nagash? Green Nagash? Schizophrenic Nagash? Or I guess it would be Wah Nagash. Alright. And we're off. I think. Yes. Alright, so already Goblin Wolf Riders do open off some shots, but the Dire Wolves very quickly tuck underneath his terrain piece and avoid any of the damage. They slip around the side, and I'm assuming Pharaoh noticed them, but he doesn't seem to be reacting terribly much. Those Forest Goblin Spider Riders could almost surely take them out single-handedly, but we'll have to see. Turin looks like he's starting to swing around wide, not wanting to meet the Greenskins with him coming uphill and them coming downhill. But the Greenskins look like they might not be giving him a choice. The Vampire Counts are not known well for being very quick. I think the Greenskins are actually quite a bit faster than them. We got 29 speed on the Orcs versus 27 speed on the Graveguard. So the Greenskins look like they're just going to come plowing down this hill come hell or high water. And honestly, if the Greenskins decide to engage, Turin's not going to have a choice. His army is much slower. that 2 speed, it does make a surprisingly large difference when you're trying to escape from a up or downhill disadvantage. Here we do see the Fellbats are flying in, potentially looking for something to maybe pin down, but they do eat a little bit of missile fire from the Goblin Wolf Riders, who are saying, hey, get the hell out of my house. Turin will need to start being aggressive here at some point. He did run into the double Vargals, but they quickly were seen off by some harassing fire. Here we do see the first of the Spirit Leeches go down on Heinrich Kemmler. I wonder if the goal is going to be to combo that with the Night Goblin Shaman's Vindictive Glare and just try and nuke Kemmler off the face of the planet. But we're going to have to see what happens. Personally, I would actually favor using the Night Goblin Shaman's Vindictive Glare more than the Death Magic, because whenever you cast a magic from Delittlewah, it drains your enemy's Winds of Power, so it gives them less magic to work with for the rest of the game. So, like, if you're fighting vampire counts, spamming Littlewah magic is really powerful because it removes their casting powers. Here we see that Kemmler did run in trying to interrupt the charge of the Black Orc so they wouldn't get their charge bonus. I couldn't tell if it worked. It was a little dubious to tell. But here we do see a Purple Sun does get cast, but unfortunately it completely whiffs. Not only does Turin manage to dodge, but it just kind of goes off in the wrong direction. And Azhag immediately gets countercharged by the Black Knights. But a very nice Gorkle Fix-It does go down, which could allow Azhag to get off the ground, theoretically. He does pop Bowseeker, but he is so deeply entrenched that it's not even funny. Like, he tried so hard to catch those Black Knights, or Blood Knights, and that just not going to happen. The only way in hell he could get out of this is if the entire Greenskin Cav contingent charged in. But Turin did a really good job of, as their lines went to meet, he just sort of altered his line so that it blobbed up really hard on this line, and the rest of his army went around the back and started swinging into the Cav. And Azhag, there's no way he's going to get off the ground here. He has broken, so that means that his AI pathing is automatically going to do anything and everything in its power to get him out of there. And if he can get through these friendly wolves, he potentially could get up in the air. But I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. He is continuing to get stun locked being hit by people. But even if he does get up in the air, these Fellbats are very, very likely just going to guide him off the battlefield. Here we do see Manfred run in trying to provide support, and Azhag does break free of the Blood Knights, and it looks like he's immediately going to jump up into the air. But like I said, those Fellbats are just going to stick to him like glue, and there's pretty much jack all that's going to be done about it. Here we do see some Fanatics are going in amongst the Blood Knights. They are actually going to do some pretty high damage, but I doubt they're going to do anything terribly significant. Azhag does rally, though, so he doesn't need to be too afraid of those pesky bats. Over here, in the meantime, we see the double Vargulfs have been surrounded by Black Orcs who are starting to beat them down, and this absolute gun line of Greenskin archers completely shatters the first Vargulf, and it is dead. Here we see another Gorkle Fix-It goes down, trying to slow down, reducing the speed and the charge ability of a lot of units. For whatever reason, though, it's not being used on someone, which would be really good. He's just casting on the ground, so it's kind of bad. If he had popped out on the Blood Knights, I mean, that's a 50% reduction in speed. That's a huge, huge speed reduction if you're trying to catch out a caveat. Here we do see that Pharaoh Vor has a massive army of secondary Cav sitting in the back, kind of not doing anything. Those Goblin Archers need to get the hell over here and start shooting those Blood Knights to hell and back and just start pinging them as much as they can. The Greenskins need to get busy. They're just kind of standing around at this point. Pharaoh needs to get his guys, he needs to get his head back in the game and start dealing with stuff. Here we see that the Night Goblin Shaman has been singled out by the Vargulf, and it's going to just beat his brakes off, and there's not really anything the Greenskins can do about it. I mean, unless they really wanted to. I mean, he could charge in this unit of Wolf Riders, and it would shut down that Vargulf offline. It wouldn't take it offline, but it would at least buy the Night Goblin enough time to rally, and he'll stealth if he can get far enough away from it. Here we do see that it looks like Pharaoh has noticed this back army rallying, and he's starting to bring his troops back into the fold. We do see Azhag here diving in on Kemmler, and Kemmler does need to be very careful. Kemmler is not a good fighter, and like he takes a huge chunk of damage from Skull Muncha doing what she does best and munching his skull. Here we do see the Vargulf turns around and starts heading back towards the front, likely realizing that, oh crap, Kemmler needs a bodyguard because there's a giant flying monster hanging around, and Krell's a little busy wailing on Black Orcs at the moment to help out. That being said, Krell can hang around the Corpse Guard because it will provide him with some healing, though he does tap himself with a very nice Invocation of Mehek. Over here, we do see the Vargulf and the Blood Knights have rallied around Kimmler, trying to provide him with some protection, but this Night Goblin Shaman has rallied, and in comes in the Vindictive Glare, and boom! Does a big chunk of damage to Kimmler's health, and Turin needs to be very, very careful of that. That Goblin Shaman is completely invisible from Turin's perspective, and it is more than capable of killing Kimmler if he's not carefully guarding him. That being said, I think the Greenskins might be a little too far gone. They got a really ugly first engagement. They didn't quite get like an agreeable fight in, and Azhag unfortunately went in really, really hard with that Purple Sun play. Oh, those can actually do really well. He went in like ham with that Purple Sun comboed build with Azhag supporting, but unfortunately the Purple Sun completely missed and went the wrong direction, and then Azhag was suddenly sitting there going whoop in the middle of a bunch of Blood Knights, and just took 90% of his health and damage, which was that's just such a shame, because Azhag is a really powerful character. I mean, if he was sitting at really high health, he would be fully capable of just kind of watching the fight, diving down, smacking Kimmler, flying back up in the air, and cycling that out with Vindictive Glares providing cover. But unfortunately, you know, he spent, what, 19 Winds of Magic on that Purple Sun, and it just doomed him. Here, Azhag does swoop in, trying to finish off the Corpse Guard, but unfortunately, just due to the colossal amount of damage the Greenskins have taken throughout the battle, they will all shatter due to army losses, and that is Game 3. Imagine if Azhag could summon Undead. That would be super lore-breaking, but also super powerful. Thankfully, when he put on the Crown of Nagash, it just gave him death magic. Alright, so the Greenskins, the Wah has faltered pretty hard so far, but all hope is not yet lost. There's one more chance for the Greenskins to try and survive the quarterfinals. And where is that game? There it is. Our final matchup is going to be Panton versus Zardar. Where's Zardar? And for today's final matchup, we're going to be having Panton's Greenskins at their rallying one final time to try and survive the quarterfinals, going up against Zardar Total War, who's going to be bringing the Dark Elves. So all three of the Greenskins matchups were against some pretty spooky opponents, but we're going to have to see if the Greenskins can at long last turn things around. There he is. Oh, do y'all see who it is? Do y'all see who the Greenskins have rallied to in their hour of need? Truly, the one true Git. The only orc who can lead them to the promised land. Up against the Dark Elves, who are a very terrifying opponent for orcs. Meme gore? That sounds like a type of Beastmen. So Azhag struck out twice, and so the Greenskins are like, you know what? Screw it, bring him off. We're gonna send in our best batter and see if he can save us. So starting with the final Wah for today, we've got double Arachnarok Spider, and then we've got even more spiders. We've got 2 units of Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers, 2 units of Forest Goblin Spider Riders, a unit of Goblin Wolf Riders. The Crimson Killers are back, ready to fight again. We've also got a Goblin Rock Lava, We've got a Night Goblin Shaman with Itchy Nuisance and Vindictive Glare, as well as the Wand of Jet. And then we've got Grimgor Ironhide with all his goodies. And for the front line, we've got a group of Orc Boys with some chevrons. So a pretty wide greenskin army based around spiders, basically. William, thank you for the $1 super chat donation. I don't see a message with it. Oh, it's for Dwa. Understandably, they'll put it towards a good cause. I imagine WA charities for like the Salvation Army is instead of them like sitting outside ringing a bell, it's like an orc like just attacks you when you come out of the store, or it's like a goblin that unleashes a bunch of squigs unless you give them a donation to support the WA. Meanwhile, over on the Dark Elf side of things, we have a pretty spooky army, though it is very wide for Dark Elves. We've got 4 units of Dark Shards, one of which is the Heliburnai, who I have heard, allegedly, is actually just a bunch of, it's actually 90 Italian Spartacus guys. It's literally 90 Italian Spartacuses just wearing cone head helmets. I can't say if it's true or not, but it's a pretty prevalent rumor. We've also got 2 units of Bleak Swords, 2 units of Cold One. Oh no, we got a unit of Cold One Dread Knights, and then a unit of Cold One Knights. 2 units of Cold One Knights, okay, one of which with a chevron. We've also got a unit of Witch Elves, 2 units of Dark Shards, and another unit of Witch Elves. Alright, and with that, we are off. Couple of smatterings come down from the Goblin Rock Lava, which of course are not terribly accurate, being greenskins, but oh, there's also quite a few Dark Riders with shields here, 2 units of them hiding in the back, though they're going to get noticed by the greenskins pretty quick, and if the greenskins respond with Forest Goblins, I don't think that's going to be a great matchup. So, looking at the battlefield, oh, also, almost forgot, Dark Elves are being led by Morathi, who has all of her goodies. She's got all of her items and her buffs, and then she's got Power of Darkness, Soul Stealer, and Soul Blight. So she's bringing in that soul-sucking goodness, which probably is a phrase I shouldn't say in regards to Morathi, but we're already there, so too late. So the biggest thing for this battle is that the greenskins with their Goblin Rock Lava need to get rid of the Dark Shards immediately. The Dark Shards need to be eliminated, and then after the Dark Shards are dealt with, the greenskins need to figure out a way to get these 2 units of Cold One Knights off the field with their anti-large bonus. Because these guys' anti-large is going to put a beating on these Arachnarok spiders. Like, they need to guard these spiders with these Crimson Killers most likely. Here we see the Dread Knights do lead in the charge against the Orc Boys, and the Dread Knights are going to absolutely annihilate them. They do need to be careful not to get, like, countercharge, but it looks like what's probably happening here is I think Zardar's trying to draw out a countercharge from the Arachnarok and then get it with all these anti-large units. That being said, Morathi takes a ton of damage from a double Vindictive Glare. Holy crap, she is already down below half health. She needs to get on the ground and out of the sky. Here, this Arachnarok spider honestly should pull back, in my opinion, and just abandon the Rock Lava. It's already done its job, forget about it. These Crimson Killers need to just bodyguard this thing like it is the president of the Orcish states. That being said, the Arachnarok did actually manage to bite a chunk out of Solofet, Morathi's Pegasus, and do a fair bit of damage. And over here, the greenskins have completely overwhelmed this line. We do see another Vindictive Glare fires off against Morathi, but it misses and instead hits all of these knights. And unfortunately, this Arachnarok, much like I predicted, got pulled out of the melee and is being pretty heavily surrounded. Morathi is receiving some... Oh, no, that was a Soul Blight. I thought it was a Soul Stealer. Oh, the Arachnarok, though, is taking none of her crap. The Arachnarok... Morathi clearly does not have a thing for spiders, even though I'm sure she has nearly every fetish on speed dial. She is down to 400 health. If the greenskins can pop off one final Vindictive Glare just to make sure she's gone forever, that would be totally worth it in my opinion. So far, things are looking okay for the greenskins, although these Cold One Knights are very, very nasty with their armor-piercing anti-large. They're not surrounding the Arachnarok. They're kind of all over the place instead of consolidating their power on single targets, which might not be good. Meanwhile, Grimgar here is looking great. He's already got 23 kills, and he's just casually butchering his way through things. That being said, looks like the first of the Soul Stealers is going to go down on Grimgar, which is going to provide quite a bit of healing on Morothy and allow her to get back in the game. Here we see the Night Goblin Shaman has been focused down, and it took the Greenskins a very, very long time to rally to try and protect it, which is unfortunate because he's dead. So there's no hope now of Morothy getting sniped out. They missed that opportunity, which is very unfortunate. We do see the Arachnaroks are trying to get back into the battle where they can. Morothy here dives in against this Arachnarok, which is so dangerous. The Arachnarok is a powerhouse, and they have fairly fast attack animations. It will not mess around tearing her up. Like that point, if this thing doesn't break, it could potentially kill her with a single attack. I like how it breaks, but it's still attacking. Thanks to that Arachnarok being chased off, it looks like the Greenskins, or the Dark Elves, are starting to rally, despite the fact the balance of power is a little bit against them, which kind of surprises me, but that's likely due to Grimgar and his beefy bodyguard here. The Crimson Killas are in a fairly good position to go toe-to-toe with a lot of these units, but they do need to be careful because there is still a unit of Dark Shards on the field. They're 2 units. These Dark Shards need to get the hell out of this fight and start shooting into the Crimson Killas. That is going to be the only way that the Dark Elves will have a hope of bringing these guys down, because they will annihilate this entire army. Meanwhile, Grimgar is in his element, absolutely butchering these Cold One Knights. He cannot give less craps. I'm pretty sure that, yeah, especially with Wah popped and Gitsnik, he's got 116 melee attack. Every time he swings, he scores. He does not give a rat's ass. Meanwhile, the Arachnaroks are continuing to rally and chitter their way towards the main engagement. If the Arachnaroks can, they need to get in on these Dark Shards and get them off the field. These Dark Shards need to go away if the Greenskins are going to have a hope of winning this. The balance of power has swung back in favor of the Dark Elves, more than likely due to Morothy popping off a really timely Soul Stealer that did a ton of damage to the Crimson Killas and Grimgar Ironhide, because unfortunately they're very bunched up. An Overcast Soulblight does go down, reducing the armor considerably of these Greenskins, including Grimgar himself, so he's actually taking a fair amount of damage, even though he's still at 90 armor. But all of these guys mutually break and run away from each other. Morothy, for some reason, has gotten on the ground, and this Arachnarok is going, nom nom, I've got... He's got a craving for Morothy that only hands can satisfy. Meanwhile, over here, Gitsnik has been popped again on its fairly low cooldown, and Grimgar is just butchering his way through the Dark Elf army. He doesn't give a damn. A lot of the Dark Elves have started to break due to terror, but a lot of the Spider Riders are breaking alongside them. Another Arachnarok, this one actually shatters. So this Arachnarok is gone and is not going to be providing any more bonuses to the Greenskins. The Crimson Killas do rally, and they need to get to Grimgar's side. Grimgar needs a bodyguard. He is not a character that does super well if he's fighting by himself. Meanwhile, Morothy has unfortunately rallied again because the Greenskins just weren't able to capitalize on the couple of times they were doing a really good job. Oh, that being said, I may have spoken too soon. Morothy shatters due to the heroic Forest Goblin Spider Rider archers shooting the very, very last of their ammo. And Grimgar, who's just been engrossed in combat this entire time, does get off another Gitsnik and is refusing to bow down to the Dark Elves. He is just going to wail on them, cleaving an absolute cleft through their lines, and the other Greenskins need to hurry up and get in here before he breaks, but unfortunately they arrive just a little too late, and Grimgar does break. They need to get in here and make sure that he can rally. Some of the Dark Elf units are starting to shatter, but Wah was popped, and this spider comes plowing into all these Dark Elf Knights, and they are suddenly feeling it really bad, Mr. Krabs. Really bad, and the balance of power starts to swing heavily in favor of the Greenskins, and with that, all the Greenskins are breaking, or all the Dark Elves are breaking. The Greenskins need to keep up the pursuit. They need to make sure that these Cold One Knights don't go back. If the Cold One Knights are gone, the Greenskins will have a solid core to rally around, but Grimgar does rally, and he says, wait, no, I'm not done fighting yet, I'm getting back in here. So Grimgar does rally to the front line, and things are coming down to the wire here. We still do have quite a few archer shots left in this Arachnarok Spider, which can do quite a bit of work if he just casually follows these units without getting too heavily engaged. Here, these Spider Riders do come slamming into the Witch Elves, push through them, breaking them, and into the crossbowmen, and that is game. Grimgor, Spider Grimgor, has claimed victory against the Dark Elves. So congratulations to Ponton for having the one true get, leading the Greenskins to victory against a very competitive Dark Elf army. But that double of Ragnarok was just so nasty. Who would have thought dedicating 50% of your army to spiders and the other 50% to orcs is apparently a viable strategy? All right. Great job. Great job. All right. So, just a brief intermission as I get the semifinals set up and ready to go. Because, oops, I forgot to update after the last one. We have Panton moving forward and Turin moving forward. So the Greenskins did manage to slip through there. Good for them. All right, let's start setting up semis. All right, so we got Felcon versus Rigson on, let's go to the Pillar of Bone, and then Turin versus Panton on Linguille. All right, how exciting. That was a great game. Really enjoyed that. Well played to both players. That went like this. I really think the Greenskins had a super early advantage when they started just plowing Morthy out of the sky, but they kind of had a really hard time like dedicatingly finishing her off. All right. So, now we've got a battle of former champions. Lizardmen versus Vampire Coast. Not only is it a thematic battle, even though we're fighting in a little bit of a strange part of the world, but both of these races have won championships in prior weeks. Lizardmen were, of course, the victors of Week 4, and the Vampire Coast were the victors of Week 1. So we'll have to see who comes out on top. We've got a massive 20-stack zombie army of Vampire Coast up against a very elite but skink-augmented army of Lizardmen. So for anyone who missed the quarterfinals, just to briefly go over the list again, we've got 4 units of skink cohorts with javelins, 2 units of regular skink cohorts, 3 units of temple guard, 3 units of Croxagors, an ancient Stegodon, who I love so much, and then we've got a Slon with the Lore of Light, who's got Bjorn's Time Warp and Fall's Protection for that sweet, sweet buff game. Meanwhile, over on the Vampire Coast side, we've got double cannons. We've got 4 units of Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs with polearms, 4 units of Zombie Pirate Deckhand mobs, one of which is the Tide of Skjold. We've got a unit of Sirens, 3 units of handguns, 1 unit of hand cannons. Then we've got a Gunnery White with all of his various buffs, extra powder, more powder, and enhanced ballistics. And then we've got Count Noctilus bringing in the Moondial, Wraith Storm, and then his Raised Drown Dead, and Invocation of Nehek. And then finally, of course, with 2 units of Deck Droppers with handguns. Just a reminder for everyone who's watching, this is the first Challenge of the Old Ones that has taken place after the Festag update was moved to the live public build. So we are playing on the Festag build, since that's the public one now. So some of the armies have been buffed and debuffed. The Vampire Coast most notably received a series of debuffs. but that doesn't seem to have hindered them in the first match. But we'll see how that avails them here. They did do very, very well their first game against the Greenskins. The Lizardmen had a very narrow victory up against the Beastmen. So we'll have to see who comes out on top this time. Already we can see that the Vampire Coast is very intelligently claiming a rather nasty hill. And that's going to work very nicely in their favor. I do randomize the maps. I do have a select set of maps, though I might change them next week. Just to make things a little fresh. But we do have a set of maps, but I randomize which maps get associated with which game. So unfortunately for the Lizardmen, they are going to be working against quite an uphill advantage here for a gunpowder army. Oh, y'all can't see. Whoops. Good thing the game hasn't started yet. Boop. Now everything I described, can't y'all imagine the battle just through my eloquent words? You don't need to be able to see the game. You should be able to use your imagination, just like the old days. When I would play tabletop, when I would play Warhammer on tabletop, you had to imagine the cinematics. This just in, we're officially now a pen and paper Total War game, no longer a regular one. I think we're waiting for someone to ready in. Okay, awesome. We're good to go. Alright, and we're off. So, let's see what the cannons are going to prioritize here. Most likely the Stegodons or the Croxors. Oh, but look at this! Look at this! This is brilliant! So, right on the onset, the Lizardmen immediately sweep through, making use of the trees for what cover they can. I was really hoping that the Croxors were going to swing behind this terrain piece to block potential cannon shots. But here we can see that the cannons did open fire on the Slaawn, but the Slaawn has immediately responded with saying, you know what, this monolith looks like a great place to Netflix and chill and just enjoy eating some Cheeto Puffs while I'm waiting for the battle to give me a better opening. So here, a lot of the handguns have started to open fire on the skink cohorts. Skinks do have bronze shields, but unfortunately they're facing the wrong direction, so their shields weren't helping them. Personally, I would have probably just let them eat all the damage because they're skinks, they're not really worth that much, though granted they do have javelins, so you do want to be a little careful. Here, the first unit of skinks has managed to slip into the sideline and is going up against the zombies. The Temple Guard have begun their initial fight here, but an upgraded Bjorn's Time Warp does go down, giving them a 24% increase in speed, so they can rush to the battle line. The Lizardmen have already completely swept around the flank of the Vampire Coast, and this Stegodon is already getting busy. He is not waiting at all. Here we see a unit of Sirens are running in to try and combat the Croxidors, which they do have a very nice debuff that they can lower the melee attack of enemy units. The Slaawn needs to float his butt over here and start hitting them with the Blood Statue and a Spite, which will cause them to die very, very quickly. Here we see the Stegodon is already down to about half health, despite the fact he has False Protection gassed on him, because a lot of those zombie units and the cannons have turned and are just starting to fire in on him. Here we have kind of a very nasty banishment go down. It does do quite a bit of damage to the Lizardmen and the Stegodon, because it just kind of sat on the Stegodon for an unfortunately long time. But it did manage to do quite a bit of damage to all these bunched up units fighting against the Croxigors. Here we see the initial force of the Croxigors have been beaten back and are retreating. I feel like that banishment would have been way better thrown back here to where a lot of the units are bunched up defensively. But, you know, you got to make do with what you can. We do here see the Sirens did get tapped with a lovely little Blood Statue of Spite, and they are starting to disintegrate. If they completely collapse, that'll be really nice for the Lizardmen because there won't be any terror on the field. Here we see the Skinks and the Croxigors went all the way around the back and charged into the cannon line, which they are completely shutting down. very carefully and eloquently. The Croxigors absolutely are burning the cannons to cinders, and they need to charge into this gun line. But they don't have to worry too much because the Skinks have come in from the rear and are providing some really powerful support. That being said, the balance of power has started to swing substantially in the favor of the Vampire Coast, but a colossal, look at the size of that aura. Bjorn's Time Warp does go down, which is going to allow the Lizardmen to have a ton of speed buffs and melee attacks, so they are just going to start chewing through all of this Vampire Coast. Unfortunately, the Skinks with Javelins did not manage to save their ammo enough to start punishing these deck droppers, but the Temple Guard have pushed their way through the front line and are charging straight into these ranged units, trying to get them offline. If the Lizardmen can manage to commit all of these gun units into a fight, they can force them down into a pure melee engagement. And in a melee engagement, the Lizardmen are going to absolutely stomp the Vampire Coast, who are just purely zombies at this point. They need to get this unit right here. This unit of zombie pirate gunnery mobs with handguns, this is the last one. If the Slon can slap them with a banishment, or if these Skinks can disengage and get involved, that would be enough to turn the tide. That being said, it looks like this Slon is doing a pretty good job of trying to sort of stand out as like a, ooh, look at me, I'm a juicy target. But he does have a pretty whopping, I believe, 40% missile resistance. Yep, so this small arms fire isn't as effective against him. Here we can see that the Pew Pew gun from the Ancient Stegodon actually manages to do a ton of damage to these deck droppers. I think it's absolutely skewering them. Personally, I would probably just have the Stegodon turn and shoot the crap out of them. Here we do see a big banishment go down, ripping through all these units of Vampire Coast. It does do a little bit of friendly fire to the Skinks, but as far as the Lizardmen are concerned, that's probably an absolutely fine exchange. We see some Skinks here swinging wide around the side. They need to get on this cannon and shut it down, but it looks like they're putting javelin shots in these deck droppers. Personally, I wouldn't really bother with the deck droppers at this point. They're pretty low on ammo. You'd be much better off focusing on these cannon crews and stuff, trying to get rid of them. Here we see the Slon decides to personally get involved, dealing with the Gunnery Wight himself, as the Slon pulls the usual super obese villain thing of if you want something done right, sometimes you gotta do it yourself. Here we see the Stegodon is standing way too close to Count Noctilus in my opinion. He is a halberd unit that does have a very, very nasty anti-large armor-piercing damage. That's not an opponent you want him to be facing. I really think it would be much better for the Slon to have gone into battle against this cannon. Oh, but unfortunately, army losses does kick in for the Lizardmen. And although they were finally starting to slowly but surely get to the center of that onion that is the Vampire Coast build, they just didn't have enough time. And with that, the Vampire Coast once more have moved on to the finals, and the Lizardmen have been cast down, breaking my heart. Really solid game, though. I think the biggest thing that I saw is that when Felcon got into the back line, one of the things that he probably should have done was have the Stegodon, when it got into the back line and there were 3 gun units in a row, and he hit the first one, the best thing I honestly think he could have done would have been spamming the orders to tell it to keep going and slamming through all the subsequent gun units and just try and mix them up as much as possible, and then just drop a fat banishment right on top of the Stegodon to let it swarm around and do a ton of damage. Unfortunately, though, that's a really hard thing to... It's very easy to say that when I'm not having to deal with, like, all the micro crap and be super focused and intent on what's going on. I really think the Lizardmen had a good chance there when they managed to swoop around the side, but unfortunately they weren't able to take good enough advantage of the situation to really rally it in their favor. Great game, though. Let's go ahead and update the bracket while we're waiting for all this junk. Boop. So we've got Rixen moving into the finals. I believe for the second time. Last week our finalists were Rixen and Turin, so I think we may be seeing a repeat match. Potentially. I believe in you, Panton, though. Let's see Grimgor rally the people. Finals will be on... Alright, so we've got a Game 1 Classic Race matchup. We've got the Vampire Counts led by Turin up against Panton's Greenskins. So for Turin, we've got 4 units of Skeleton Warriors, and leading the army, we've got Heinrich Himmler on a Barded Nightmare. And of course, he's got Invocation of Nehek, Van Hell's Dance Macabre, and Raise Dead for his magic. We've also got a single unit of Blood Knights who are going to be very useful in this game. We've got double Vargulfs who are of course excellent bodyguards and character snipers. 2 units of Grave Guard with great weapons, and then we've got the Stearnsmen holding up the core of the infantry front line. 2 units of Fellbats for Harass, and 2 units of Direwolves, one of which is the Dire Pack with their anti-large. Meanwhile, over on the Greenskin side, we have a Harass of Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers. Simon Benjamin coming in with the £10 donation saying, great format, first time I've caught one live. Thanks, man. I appreciate the kind words and your support. Means a lot, helps us keep doing what we're doing. Thank you very, very much. Over here, we've got 4 units of Orc Boys with some chevrons bolstering up their combat stats and leadership, supported by none other than the Crimson Killas, who actually did a ton of damage in the last game. Leading the army, of course, we've got the one and only, the one true Git, Grimgor Ironhide. And behind him is a Goblin Rock Lava and 2 Arachnarok Spiders. So this is definitely the Arachnophobia army with the sheer volume of spiders on the field, though there is 1 unit of Goblin Wolf Riders. Alright, so the game has started. Of course, thanks to the Goblin Rock Lava, the Greenskins do not have to engage. They can idly sit in the back and engage on their own terms, waiting for the Vampire Counts to come to them. In the meantime, the Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers do fire off a couple of volleys towards the Vampire Counts, but don't really connect with anything, unfortunately. The Turin does need to be very, very careful because this Night Goblin Shaman can start just overcasting Vindictive Glare, and he can just melt Himmler in like 2 volleys. So Turin's going to need to be very respectful of this Night Goblin and make sure that it's not able to just get some really easy damage in on him. Over here, the Fellbats do swoop around behind the line, though they do need to be careful because despite the fact a lot of people like to forget about it, these Arachnaroks do have archers on their Howdah who will just sort of like casually keep shooting, and that's actually going to do some okay damage to Fellbats, who are just all squishy as get out. Here we do see the first volley of Vindictive Glare go down, knocking Himmler down to about 30% health, and there's an immediate follow-up thanks to the Wand of Death, knocking Himmler down to 600. Oh man, so 90% of his health is gone in an instant. So Turin's going to need to pop an Invocation of Nehek, but he does need to be careful because if he completely starts crumbling, you can't cast certain spells from the Vampire Count's lore, like Invocation of Nehek will become impossible to cast if he takes too much damage. He's down too far, and Himmler's dead. Alright, so the Greenskins have opened with a hell of a War Drum beating. Krell did not even have time to show up for his annual booty call before he got absolutely put in a trash can. Clearly, the Greenskins are not messing around. Here, we do see the Orc Boys have gone ahead and popped the Wah, and they charge in against the enemy front line. The Crimson Killas are running in here against the Stearnsmen and the Greatswords, which is a great matchup for them. They will absolutely slam it there. Here, the Arachnarok Spider does come in to lay a whooping down on the Vargulfs because it has considerably higher mass and is more than capable of laying a beatdown on these two. So they are already running for the hills. Meanwhile, Grimgor does run in to support the Crimson Killas, who are already cleaving their way through the Stearnsmen, and a really fat, itchy nuisance goes down, which is going to reduce the melee attack and the weapon damage of all the troops in this major battle. Meanwhile, the Rock Lava is continuing to be protected by a really, really nice Greenskin mobile force that's doing their best to just defend. The Fellbats are all almost completely dead, and here the first of the Arachnaroks does get surrounded by Blood Knights and Vargulfs. That's not the easiest fight for the Blood Knights, though, because although they're very powerful, they're actually not considered a heavy armor-piercing unit. They only have an armor-piercing ratio of 10. So although they have really, really solid stats and high bonus versus large, these Arachnaroks have 150 armor. They're pretty tanky, all things considered. It looks like we might be about to see another Vindictive Glare coming in, but not yet in any event. Grimgar Ironhide is fighting against the Vargulf, and he is absolutely crumping these guys. Meanwhile, we do see the Corpse Cart trying to get to a safe distance, but it looks like the Arachnarok Spiders and the Goblin Shaman are focusing this thing, trying to make sure that all of the healing is banished. And kaboom! Down goes the Corpse Cart under a fury of devastating firepower from the Greenskins. So the vampire counts now simply have to fight to the death, and they have no magic, no healing. It is a pure fight to the bitter end. But Grimgor excels in this environment. There is nothing to threaten Grimgor now. All that's left are the Vargulfs, but the Arachnarok Spiders are more than capable of picking on these guys. And there is a ton of Greenskin cavalry running around just being a nuisance, and the Grave Guard have all been pretty much wiped out. The Crimson Killas easily laying the beat down on this Grave Guard front line. The Crimson Killas have only lost 7 models, and they've killed 94 models, and they've been fighting nothing but Grave Guard. So they are easily winning that matchup. And Grimgor Ironhide is just cackling loudly to himself, roaring for Dewa as he just continues to provide leadership buffs and is staying in combat constantly with his 120 armor, making sure that he can pop Wa as much as possible. I don't think there's anything that Turin can do in this scenario. Like, Turin brought a really nice army, but those 2 Arachnaroks are so heavily armored, and Turin just didn't have any super reliable, heavily armor-piercing anti-large. That's not something the Vampire Counts have unless they bring Terrorgeist, but a Terrorgeist against Arachnaroks is a very spooky matchup, because the Terrorgeists are much more expensive due to the fact they can fly, and these Arachnaroks don't give a shit about the Vargulfs. They're just like, step off, son. Meanwhile, we've got Grimgor here following them around, making sure to provide a really nice leadership bonus, and the poison damage from these Arachnaroks is enough to slow these guys so that they can continue getting support. And here we see an Overcast Nuisance come in, and it's just doing so much damage. This Goblin Shaman is so powerful, and Turin just doesn't have a way to deal with him. He doesn't have any sniper characters in his army. You know, there's not like a White King on a horse, or in Krell didn't get out fast enough. There's no like there's no Vargeist or Terrorgeist. So the Vampire Counts were just completely emasculated the instant they stepped onto the battlefield. Kimmler got eradicated in a very, very famous strategy where people just snipe him, and that's game. Unfortunately, the Vampire Counts just got ripped apart. That Shaman just putting Kimmler in a dumpster. My God. Crimson Killas easily putting in their weight with 107 kills against pure Graveguard. And they took no damage in that trade up. Like, what a beatdown that was. The Arachnarok Spiders were so tough, and they were too big for the Vargulfs, because Vargulfs normally are a perfect unit for harassing large entities and characters, because they stick on you like glue and they go boom, 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 like a bunch of big monkeys and you're dead. But Arachnarok Spiders break that rule. Arachnarok Spiders are so heavy that when the Vargulfs try and gang up on them, they just go and send them flying. And the Vargulfs are useless. So the Vargulfs were put down. Kimmler literally got knocked down to 10% health in less than 2 seconds because the Goblin Shaman overcast Vindictive Glare, popped the Wand of Jet to remove its cooldown, and overcast it again immediately. Just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And that's the danger to using Kimmler. The only way that Turin could have survived that is Turin would have had to hide Kimmler at the beginning of the field, or he needed to hide behind a Vargulf. He needed to use a Vargulf to physically block the way. But unless you've played a lot of Kimmler like someone, like, that is a strategy. That's why Kimmler is so spooky to play, is because people like will see him and they'll go pa and just one shot him. Like, oof. Oof. All right, so no retaining his throne this week. So Panton coming in with the steel chair with the Greenskins and just I love when a Grimgor build does well. I don't care who's playing it or how the game went. If Grimgor's winning, I'm just like for the back line. I love that build. You have a Grimgor with a super elite bodyguard, and then he just has a giant arachnophobic army backing him up. Like, who wants to fight someone whose bodyguard is literally like 500 spiders, 2 of which are the size of townhouses? You know? Alright, and with that, we are into the finals, and we're actually running fairly ahead of schedule today. We're in the finals, and we're only 90 minutes in. And chat, I have a special announcement after the finals. So we've got the Vampire Coast versus the Greenskins, and we're going to the Tower of Hoeth. So we've got a new contender versus an old champion. The Greenskins have never won a week of the Challenge of the Old Ones, but the Vampire Coast won the very first week. So we'll have to see if, despite the Festag build debuffs, the Vampire Coast are still the kings when they decide to show up, or if the Greenskins can at last claim victory. It's going to be tricky, because one thing I will say that has benefited the Greenskin build in every game so far is that he has an artillery piece. He brought a very cheap Goblin Rock Lava that has forced all of his opponents to come meet him in battle. But the Vampire Coast has 2 cannons, which is a pretty big FU upgrade. The Greenskins have more than strong enough of a front line to cleave through the front line of the Vampire Coast, but they are still severely outnumbered. That being said, though, they do have ranged cav, so they might be able to deal with the deck droppers, assuming they don't get cut out too early. But this is going to be a hard game for the Greenskins. Double Arachnarok, Grimgor, Crimson Killas. Those are 4 things that are very, very heavy and very, very expensive. It's going to be very difficult for the Vampire Pirates or the Vampire Coast to, for the Greenskins to make sure that they don't lose all of those valuable units. If I were them, I would do exactly this. I would put my Arachnaroks in the forest, and I would go all the way around through the forest. Because one thing a lot of people don't realize is Arachnaroks have the Strider rule, which means they don't take any speed or combat penalties for being in a forest. So where most monsters going through the forest would be like, ugh, and just take forever, and still be taking cannon shots as they're moseying around, these guys will haul ass through the forest. Crimson Killas in the forest is also a brilliant idea because they're just going to be hidden. The Orc boys, they can take plenty of punishment. That being said, I will say the Vampire Coast also has to be very careful. Noctilus is just as vulnerable to the spam snipe of Vindictive Glare, and Noctilus is way more expensive than Kemler. The Greenskins are probably going to be heavily counting on Noctilus not hiding. If Noctilus stays right here in the middle of his army, he is going to be in a very dangerous position. How is the armor piercing on Glare? Very high. Vindictive Glare has super high armor piercing, especially when it's overcast. I think the only missile spell that technically hits harder is Shem's Burning Gaze. Alright, and we're off. Not a ton of super viable targets for the cannon. They'll probably go into the Spider Riders, just because if they can get rid of the Spider Riders, then the Greenskins don't have an answer to the deck droppers. Personally, I am not a huge fan of the Spider Riders eating all of the initial cannon shots. I think it would have been better to keep the Spider Riders in the forest as well and bring them around the side, because these guys are so valuable at this point. Like, these guys need, if they're going to get shot by the cannon, then they at least need to come far out to this flank to try and convince the cannon to face a different direction. Here we see the first of the initial cannon shots is starting to go into Grimgor Ironhide. It will be able to do a ton of damage to him if it can hit him, which is dubious, but, you know, we'll see what happens. Oh, that one got him. Like I said, though, this Vindictive Glare might even be strong enough to blow up the Carronades. It looks like we already have our counter battery fire coming in from the Greenskins. Good idea, focusing the handguns. 100% behind that. Here we see that the bats are being used to try and scout out enemy units, while the Forest Goblin Spider Rider archers are just doing their job, going after the deck droppers. I would probably focus down one unit, but we'll see. Grimgor is staying at far range, which is wise. The further you are away from the enemy, the harder it is to hit with a cannon. And here the Greenskins waste no time bringing in all these spiders, taking a unit, and just slapping them in the face. And we'll have to see how well Noctilus is paying attention. It looks like he's moving to do something, though I'm not sure where he's going. He's getting a little close to the front line, and this Goblin Shaman has to be just waiting. Here we do see one of these units does take a fair amount of damage, but nothing too crazy. And while these units are a little bit chaotic and unengaged, the spiders have emerged from the forest, Wa is popped, and the battle lines are meeting. At this point, I would probably go ham. Oh, okay, he summoned something down there on them. Whoa, I don't know what that was aiming for, but it kind of went all over the place. Oh, that was aimed at the gunnery white. Okay, it does a little bit of damage, not a ton. Here the Spider Riders have gone in. A Vindictive Glare goes off on the deck droppers, but it's not that great against them because it only focuses a single unit model. I would probably have Grimgor beeline for Noctilus and try and take him offline, because Grimgor can crump him in a fight. But then again, you have to be careful it doesn't get surrounded. One of the Arachnaroks is offline because all of these gun units are just doing what they want to do without any regard for needing to be in danger. The Crimson Killers are trying to slowly but surely come around the side, but I think it's just going to be too little too late. Here we have the hand cannons supported by the hand guns. Already have broken another Arachnarok. It's probably going to get chased off. The deck droppers are starting to get a little low. I really don't think the Greenskins had the right battle plan, looking at the way things are going. Those Sirens are also going to be a huge problem. They're a terror-causing ethereal unit. Vampire Coast doesn't have an answer to that. One of the Arachnaroks has been shattered, and the Greenskins don't have anything to show for it. Noctilus is still at very high health. It looks like he may have fired some shots at that gunnery white earlier, but personally, I probably would have fired them into Noctilus, like full peel. The Greenskins are trying so desperately to get these guns offline, but they just don't have a way to deal with it. Something that definitely happened this week is there's a lot of ranged units on the field, and nobody had an answer to them. Nobody we've seen today has brought an answer to there being 4 very heavily protected gun units. I think if Turin had brought his dwarf build from last week, literally the exact same thing happened last week that's happening this week. Somebody showed up with a huge gun line and nobody had an answer. So that's going to be the meta that people are going to need to practice against and figure out a way to beat, is gun lines. Because and it's not a gun line with elite troops. It's just a really shitty army. There's just a lot of them backed up by, about 400 guns. Greenskins just don't have an answer to deal with this. Something that probably would have been really nice for the Greenskins is if they had like 2 Doom Divers providing support instead of perhaps and just like laying waste to those really wide units. Doom Divers are super good against large units, even if they're fairly spread out. Here, though, we do see the Ragnarok Spider does manage to rally to the front line, but I just think it's way too little, way too late. It took the Crimson Killers a really long time to get here, and the Vampire Coast actually did also get lucky in a few ways. this white is on a really nice position for this hill. You can see the way this hill arcs. It goes out in a pretty flat plateau and then dips down suddenly. So when that Night Goblin Shaman kept trying to Vindictive Glare him, it kept hitting the hill. Because magic missiles do not travel uphill very well. They travel straight, they travel up in the air, and they travel downhill very well. But traveling uphill, not going to happen. I think the only hope the Greenskins had in this battle was for them to spam Vindictive Glare at Count Noctilus and try and bring him down. And then if he had gone down, they might have been able to salvage the situation. But, I mean, the Greenskins didn't do a bad job. They took off both cannons without them getting a ton of value. They took out a full unit of gunnery mobs, but they didn't deal with Noctilus. And as long as Noctilus is alive, nothing else matters. He can just summon so many units. Noctilus can summon, 6 units? So the only way to effectively defeat the Vampire Coast is you need a way to stop guns, and you need a way to bring Noctilus down. Empire, for instance, would be a really good army to try and take on the Vampire Coast. But, the tricky thing about this tournament is you never know when that's going to happen. You never know when your opponent is going to show up with a really powerful gun line or a really powerful monster army. I don't think gun lines would have won every week we've played here. I think there are some weeks gun lines would have gotten absolutely stomped. Whoops. But, with that said, this week's champion, claiming his throne for the first time, is Rickson. So everyone give Rickson a big congratulations for his first victory in the Challenge of the Old Ones. He did manage to win with the Vampire Coast, who have won their second win in the full series. Granted, it's a new patch, so we should probably do a full reset of what races won how many times. So, with that being said, I do have an announcement. Infinite Wonder, if you could have a Lizardman mercenary group, less than 10 total dudes, only single Lizardman, no slons or legendaries. What? If you could have... Well, I'll deal with that in a second. So, the announcement, chat, is that this series is doing really well. A lot of people seem to be really enjoying the Challenge of the Old Ones and like to come out, and we get really good viewership considering that we literally do this in the middle of the day, and by the time we conclude, most people have not left work yet. I have gotten a lot of responses from a lot of people who have wanted to play in the tournament and watch the tournament live who haven't been able to do so because we host it on a Friday. So, not every week, but many weeks, including this week, tomorrow we are going to host another Challenge of the Old Ones. So tomorrow, I will announce the time here on my channel. It'll show up as a scheduled live stream, so keep your eye out for that. But because I'm gonna get some new faces and figure out people who want to play. But tomorrow, likely in the afternoon, when everyone will not have work and everyone will be home, whether you're in America or Europe or even Asia, the very few of those there are, or Australia, we have a bunch of Australians, then be sure to keep your eye on the channel tomorrow, because we will be back with Challenge of the Old Ones, the Saturday edition, tomorrow, with 8 new faces. Nobody from today will be allowed to compete tomorrow. It'll be 8 brand new faces. Maybe not for the tournament entirely, but at least 8 people that didn't play today. If that sounds exciting, then maybe consider hitting the like button on your way out. I'd really appreciate getting to 200 likes, because that's the easiest way you can contribute to helping the stream out, and it's free. So in any event, if you guys enjoyed it, feel free to let me know by slapping that like button. If you hate it, then hit the dislike button too. There's 2 buttons, so you can communicate your views there. In any event, thank you all so much for watching. we're going to go ahead and sign off for today. I will be back tomorrow with 8 new faces for some more glorious Challenge of the Old Ones, and we'll have to see what happens then. Like I said, Saturdays will not happen every time. Maybe it'll be once a month, maybe twice a month, but it won't be every week. So, Saturday edition, but the first time will take place tomorrow. So thanks again, all you guys, for watching. I personally will be back later tonight to continue my Bretonnian campaign because I'm having a ton of fun with that. And we almost lost it last night, but barely managed to salvage it. So it's fighting for the lady has proven very difficult, but I'm having a lot of fun. So yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. See you guys then. We're so close to 200 likes. So close. So close. Only 100 minutes today. Man, we were quick. All right, guys. Have a good day. I am going to go ahead and peace out for now. So congrats again to Rigson, our champion for this week. And congrats to everyone who participated. It was very exciting to see the Greenskins get close to claiming victory. Last week they were in the finals. This week they were in the finals. Maybe next week, or maybe even tomorrow, will be the day of glory for the Greenskins. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll give you all some outro music while I leave this up, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. He says, as he does what he always does, where he didn't cue up the music beforehand like he should have, because otherwise you get to hear him typing, because if I didn't do that, then there'd just be an awkward pause, and people would be like, oh, you shut the thing off, and it'd be kind of weird. It's already kind of weird. Bye.
Chloe, where'd you go?